Alright, you spooky Judies, since you liked the last one so much, we are back with a part 2 that is full of even more sinister hauntings, a couple possessions, and even an earthbound ghost who refuses the help of Ed and Lorraine. Get cozy and get ready to dive into the occult and the paranormal as we talk part 2 of the top 10 real demons that terrified Ed and Lorraine Warren. Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have Leslie. Leslie was a 19-year-old student who was attending college in Hartford when she encountered the Warrens. Leslie came from quite a well-off New York family, but in the end she came to the Warrens for help because she was experiencing these unexplainable bouts of depression and anger, and she wanted to see them resolved. She actually, in the beginning, only met with Ed, and when she did, she explained to him that she had previously called upon demons and even the devil himself in order to help her win the love of a boy back home. Apparently, this worked. She had won the boy, and now Satan was on the way to claim her soul, which is why she needed the help of the Warrens before it became too late. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Borley Church. This is the story that is behind the inspiration for the terrifying movie The Nun, so buckle up because it's a good one. This story takes place when the Warrens went to Essex in order to investigate claims of the haunted Borley Church. The tales involved ghostly chanting, organ music being heard when no one can be seen playing, as well as the ghosts of both monks and nuns roaming around the area. It is said that these hauntings started because in one of the past lives of the area and the building, it is said that a nun was buried in the walls alive after attempting to run off with a monk. I gotta be honest, if that was me, I'd haunt that place forever too. The Warrens are said to have made a series of visits to Borley, and in regards to their very first visit, Lorraine apparently said that it was a phenomenal experience. She spoke about how there was a reporter who was also there to cover the story, and this reporter was particularly skeptic about the reports. Suddenly, this reporter began feeling ill and was struggling to breathe. Later that night, after listening to a tape recording of the event, it is said that a disembodied female voice could be heard repeating the words, "Hit him, hit him." In our number 8 spot today, we have the vampire. This story is said to be that of a sort of possession, which I honestly wasn't expecting. It is said that the subject in this case, who isn't named, began to have an interest in the occult because of a sort of curiosity with morbidity and death. This then led to her starting to practice satanic rituals, which, listen, we can all express ourselves how we choose, but just be careful, you know? Because for this woman, these rituals led to a bloodlust. She soon found herself waiting outside of cemeteries and dark places, trying to find a young man to prey upon. She would then bite them, like what you'd expect a vampire to do, but it is said that these bites were only to satisfy her craving and hunger, and that the bites were never serious. I'm just saying, serious injury or not, it's pretty messed up. It is said that during her interview with Ed Warren, the woman confessed to having bitten 16 different people this way. In our number 7 spot today, we have Satan's Harvest. This is the story that is said to be behind the book Satan's Harvest, and it involves someone named Maurice Theriault, who is also known by the nickname Frenchie. He was a farmer, and it is said that he had 2 personalities. One was kind and friendly and warm, his neighbors loved him, some members of his family loved him, but there was another side of him that was dark and cruel and twisted, and this was seen towards specific members of his family. Ed and Lorraine came to investigate, and it is said that chaos ensued. They claimed to see him bleeding from his eyes, they found crosses that would just appear on his body, and even messages written on his back. In our number 6 spot today, we have West Point. This story starts out when Ed and Lorraine were called to a military academy in West Point, New York. When the couple arrived, it is said that Lorraine could sense what was going on. She felt the presence of an Irish cook named Molly. She explained that Molly was a bit clumsy and messy, but this wasn't the only presence, however. The officers at the academy would complain about a ghost moving objects around their living quarters. It was later identified as a ghost named Greer, which, after some research, turned out to be quite eerie. This is because it is believed that this ghost might have been that of Lawrence Greer. This man was a Buffalo soldier until it is said that he turned into a killer. Here's the really creepy part though. I mean, as if being a killer isn't creepy enough. It is said that after Greer's trial, there's no record of what happened to him. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Ouija Board. This story is one that Ed Warren told when he was trying to set an example of how things of the occult and the supernatural certainly are not for amateurs or for the faint of heart. He used this story of a girl who was playing with a Ouija board. You know, how all good supernatural stories start. She asked for proof of a spirit presence, and she got a lot more than she bargained for. Warren said, quote, "She got this proof with 2 days and 2 nights of hell." Apparently it started off with a manifestation of a sort of animal form walking on her bed. This then turned physical, and whatever this entity was left her with bruises. It is said that thankfully the mother in the home saw what was happening and she took action. She not only prayed by the girl's bedside, but she also sprinkled holy water. There was a 2-day vigil in which everyone tried to rid the girl of this demonic presence that she had summoned, and thankfully, it worked. In our number 4 spot today, we have The Beginning. We talk a lot about the most famous cases of the Warrens, like the ones that inspired the Conjuring movies or Haunting in Connecticut or The Nun, but what we don't really talk about is how the Warrens got into the occult. I mean, most people, especially in their day, don't just wake up and suddenly go, "I think I'm gonna dedicate my life to the paranormal." So something must have happened to pique their interest. Well, apparently for Ed Warren, it started at quite a young age. It is said that Ed realized at only age 5 that his house was haunted. Apparently he witnessed a glowing orb and a terrifying woman's face coming out of his closet. I mean, that would be horrible to see as a grown adult, I can't imagine at that age. But it fully makes sense as to why he later became so interested in the things that he did. Before Ed and Lorraine became the names that they are today, it is said that in order to help the pair get a foot in the door, literally into haunted homes, Ed used his passion for painting. He used this by painting homeowners' pictures of their houses. Clearly, something he did must have worked. In our number 3 spot today, we have the Lindley Street haunting. This is a case that the Warrens were involved in back in the 70s. A couple named Gerald and Laura Goodwin had adopted a girl named Marcia a few years prior to this case and the strange occurrences taking place. There were a bunch of weird things that started happening, including furniture moving, seemingly of its own accord, as well as a crucifix flying off the wall, again seemingly by some sort of invisible force. What really drew people into this case specifically, and what made it so sensational, was the number of people who had reputations of being reliable who also claimed to witness these strange occurrences. It is said that some people claimed to even hear Marcia's pet cat speak. One reverend even claimed to see the cat singing Christmas carols in the basement. But let's be honest, while that would be very jarring, that's also one of the funniest things I've ever heard. In our number 2 spot today, we have the Antonellis. The story of this haunting starts off with Mrs. Antonelli, who in February of 1966 claimed that while everyone else in the house was sleeping, she saw some sort of apparition. She explains that it was a mass of gray mist that had 4 distinct appendages, and she said it was bright and looked as if it was in sort of a bubble. No one, including her own husband, believed the things she had seen until a year later. It was at this point that one day, while Mr. Antonelli was home alone, he suddenly, out of nowhere, heard a quote ungodly scream, and when he looked in the direction that it came from, he saw the stairs in his house, but suddenly they appeared as if they went on forever. He sat down, had a few coffees and cigarettes, like I think anyone would after seeing something like that, and after he thought it was over and he went back to the housework that he was doing, but he certainly was not right. Basically, it said that he put the hammer down about 7 to 10 feet away from the top of the stairs, and then all of a sudden the hammer came flying down them. He went to grab it, put it down again, and this time it suddenly flew right over his shoulder. It is said that when his family came home, he was still a ghostly white, and this time he had 2 cigarettes in his mouth. From here, it is said that many other family members would go on to also experience very strange and unexplainable occurrences. It is said that for the Warrens, even in their long and full careers, this was one of the most interesting cases that they ever investigated. In our number 1 spot today, we have the theater haunting. Starting in Willimantic, Connecticut, the Warrens went out to check out a theater that was said to have a number of strange apparitions and weird sightings. The manager is said to have been 32 at the time, and he had also recently started working there when he saw the figure of a woman late one night after he had already closed down the theater. He saw the same figure the following night, and this led him to confide in one of the employees who had been there for years about what he was witnessing. This is when the employee said that from the balcony one night he had seen two actors in a Shakespearean dress. One of them fell exclaiming, "They've killed me," and then all three of them disappeared. This wasn't the only employee either. The janitor also experienced strange happenings and sometimes even heard footsteps. The Warrens decided to conduct a seance in the theater. Ed apparently reported that, quote, "The girl whom the manager had seen came to us and explained she had been murdered after she witnessed the killing of a man. The spirit said she knew she was dead, but she was afraid to, quote, pass over to death because, quote, they were waiting for her." There was of course a medium present at the seance, and it is said that this medium called upon spirit guides to help the girl, but she refused. The Warrens left this case saying that the girl's spirit was still earthbound and that she remained in that theater. I wonder if she's still there. Does anyone know? Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thanks so much for checking it out. I have been your host today, Olivia Kozlowski, and I'll see you next time. Bye! You don't get to know the ending of that one. Even I'm like, that was a bit of a cliffhanger.